Go ahead and get started. Good. There you go. Recording in progress. And good morning, everybody. Welcome to to our Southwest Ecological Restoration Institute's wood utilization team. It's a virtual workshop on financial assistance for the forest industry. I will be your facilitator. My name is Rich Edwards. I am a research associate here at Ecological Restoration Institute, Northern Arizona University, Flagstaff, and we're specifically in the forest operations biomass utilization program. So I'll be your facilitator. I'd like to go over some housekeeping items. If Damon, if you could change the slide, please. Great, thanks. So first off, when you come onto the webinar, just note that you are muted and your video is off. You can use the chat feature specifically to communicate with other attendees. Please do not put questions in there though. Use the Q&A feature, which is right next to it to the left of it, to ask questions during the presentations, and we'll address those at the end of each panel. And we are recording the presentation in its entirety, and we will post online after the seminar. And if you're needing to get Society of American Foresters continuing forestry education credits, make sure you type your name into the chat box and mention CFE, and Damon will make sure you get credit for that. So it's 2 hours, I believe, of CFE credit. Okay, and then first thing I'd like to do is kind of give a little background on the workshop that we're having. We originally had planned this workshop as a half-day in-person event. Obviously, before, even during COVID, we had hoped that we would be able to do it in person and do a 4-hour type of a presentation, half-day workshop, basically in the afternoon. And we had planned to have a lot of time at the end of the workshop for in-person networking, which is very valuable when you're seeking grant funding, to get networking with folks, the folks that have the resources, basically. And so that was how we were looking at it. We were looking at it as a way to get folks in touch with some of the financial assistance people. And we ended up, at first, we were going to concentrate on the Wood Innovations Program with U.S. Forest Service, and then our two regional U.S. Forest Service reps, Laura and at the time, Buck Sanchez, suggested that we look around for some other programs, other agencies, federal agencies, state agencies, whatever, to get more of a variety of presenters and funding sources for people. And so that's kind of what we did, and we've kind of had to condense it in a virtual format down to 2 hours. So it's going to be pretty rapid fire. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We have a very a tight agenda, but the general format will be, for each panel there will be 15 minutes for program description, and then there will be 5 minutes for a recipient or case study discussion. And then we like to hold questions until the end of each panel, so that we're leaving 10 minutes for questions. Remember, Q&A, the questions in the box below. And but anyway, that's the general format. And I'm thinking we probably just need to go. It looks like we're right on schedule here, 8:05. Let's go right into the first panel. I'm going to go ahead, and some of the folks indicated they would prefer to do their own introductions, but this panel is I'll introduce both folks. First up, we've got Laura Wolf, and she's a Wood Utilization Innovations Program Specialist for the U.S. Forest Service in the Rocky Mountain region, Region 2 in Lakewood. So before she joined the Forest Service in 2019, she was a silvicultural seasonal on the Plumas National Forest, Northern California, and she graduated from UC Berkeley with a bachelor's in integrative biology, a minor in forestry and natural resources. She also has a master's in environmental science and management from Bren School at UC Santa Barbara. In her current role, she provides technical financial assistance for innovative wood uses and products to support forest restoration and wildfire risk reduction activities on forest land in Region 2, Rocky Mountain. With that, I'll let you take it, Laura. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me. If any of you were on the, we had a national webinar yesterday talking about this program, so apologies, this will be a little repetitive, but they had a lot of tech issues, and hopefully that will not be the case with me today. So I'm going to be presenting on actually 2 grant programs today. One is our Wood Innovations program that we've had for a while, and then I'm also going to be talking about our community wood funding opportunity, which is much newer. We've only had it for a year or 2. So yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. This time I can see your notes, so maybe if you maybe you'll be able to switch the display settings.
Okay, let's see. Oh, the bar is in the way. Okay, hold on. Let me just try again. Oh, but now I can't see my notes. Of course, this happened. Apologies. Do you know how I can, oh wait, hold on. Get rid of the bar at the top so that I can see the.
My only thought would be if you stop screen share, get it set up, and then do the screen share.
The bar at the top gets in the way of everything that I'm trying to do. Okay, let's see. And then, how about now? Are you seeing the presenter view?
That looks good. Yeah, I'm seeing the correct view there.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, here we go. All right, I got a lot to cover, so apologies, it's gonna be pretty rapid fire. So first off, so I'm gonna just kind of do a comparison of both as I go through. So the intent of our community wood program is to support shovel-ready projects that are, ready to get off the ground to install a thermally led community wood energy system or build a new or expand an existing innovative wood product facility. And I'll get into a little more about what that means in later slides. And then our Wood Innovations program is meant to stimulate, expand, and support US wood products and wood energy markets. So the goals of the program, so community wood, we want to expand thermally led community wood energy or innovative wood product facilities and opportunities. The goals are to improve forest health and stimulate local economies. Wood innovations, we're looking for things that are going to help us reduce hazardous fuels and improve forest health on national forest system and other forest lands. We want to reduce the cost of forest management on all land types by promoting markets for this material. And we want to promote the economic and environmental health of communities. So there's some different priorities, and these are not mandatory, but they'll help make your project more competitive if it addresses some of these things. And there's some overlap down at the bottom here. Something that's kind of new is we're looking to support communities that are historically underserved or marginalized. or adversely affected by persistent poverty or inequality, and that's true for both programs. So if you can show that in some way, that'll be helpful for your project. And both, similarly, we're looking for projects that are located where markets are needed for low value or low quality wood, and where the project can aid forest restoration. Community wood, we're looking for projects that are going to use or retrofit an existing sawmill facility where the unemployment rate exceeds the national average. And also we're looking for projects that are going to use the most stringent control technology that has been required or achieved in practice for a wood-fired boiler, or in places where there's limited access to natural gas. But also, if it's going to replace natural gas, that's great too, because we're looking for climate-friendly options here. Wood innovations, we're looking to expand markets for wood and biomass generated by projects on U.S. forest lands. So hazardous fuels reduction projects and forest health projects. We're looking for industry involvement. That'll really help strengthen your project if you yourself aren't industry. And bundling of wood energy or wood products projects is definitely a plus. And we're also looking for projects that are going to be using domestically sourced timber for mass timber construction projects and other projects. But that's, like I said, none of these are deal breakers, but they'll just help the competitiveness of your project. So eligible applicants for both programs are the same. These awards can go to local, state, and tribal governments, for-profit entities, businesses, companies, corporations, nonprofit entities, institutions of higher education, and special purpose districts, so public utility districts, fire districts, that kind of thing. So the award ceiling and match, this is where these programs start to differ a little bit. So community wood, you can ask for up to between $1 million and $1.5 million. So this is the ceiling, and we have not given awards of this amount just because the total funding has been limited for these programs. Last year, we only had about $2 million to give. So I think the highest amount we gave was $750,000. And I would say your project may have a higher likelihood of being awarded if you're asking for less than that. And the Wood Innovations Program, the ceiling is a lot lower. We typically do not give awards greater than $250,000 unless it hits every other competitive button. So I would strongly recommend asking for $250,000 or less. The matching requirements are a little different. So community wood does not require a formal match that has to follow the same rules as the Wood Innovations Program, but the federal funds can only pay for up to 35% of the total capital costs needed to bring the project to operable status. So capital costs are like everything that's needed to make the project complete. So although there's no formal match, the leveraging is required, and the applicant must provide the remainder of funds from non-federal sources. So you need to figure out how to cover the rest of those, 65% of the cost of your project. In special cases, we'll go up to $1.5 million and covering 50% of the total capital costs, but there has to be special circumstances, high unemployment rate in the area or hitting some of those other priorities. And you need to ask for a prior permission to request that from your regional coordinator. And I'll get into the regional coordinators at the end. And the Wood Innovations Project, on the other hand, requires a 100% match. So for every $1 of Forest Service funds requested, the applicant needs to provide $1 of non-federal match. And that can be cash or it can be in-kind services. And if you're getting match from other sources besides your own funding, you need to provide a letter of support committing those matches from whatever entity it's coming from. And something that's really important to keep in mind, both of these awards are given as reimbursement for costs incurred. So there's no advanced payment allowed. So some examples for community wood. So this funding can be used to install a thermally led community wood energy system to offset any fuel. And the maximum nameplate capacity is set at 5 megawatts. So this funding can't be used for anything that's going to be larger than 5 megawatts. And thermally led just means you're using that heat. It's not just going to be producing electricity. It can be used to purchase and install manufacturing equipment at an innovative wood product facility. An innovative wood product facility, it's pretty vague on purpose, but things, if you're going to be making traditional lumber products or firewood or that kind of thing, that would not be considered innovative. Things like biochar or biofuels or mass timber, that's sort of what we're thinking of when we say innovative. But on the other hand, you could also be using an innovative technology to make a traditional timber product. So expanding a sawmill that incorporates innovative technologies and processes that aren't typically seen in the US or in that region, that could be successful. And then also can be used to purchase and install equipment to produce renewable natural gas or other biofuels. So this program is a little more flexible on equipment purchase than the Wood Innovations program. But for both programs, equipment purchase, the equipment needs to be stationary. Neither will fund mobile equipment purchase. So Wood Innovations, some examples can be used to establish or increase wood product manufacturing capacity or markets that support forest ecosystem restoration. It can be used to complete engineering designs, cost analyses, and permitting necessary in the later stages of commercial construction projects, where wood is used as a primary building material. Now, the funding cannot be used to cover construction itself, but it can be used for some of the other things required. Can be used to showcase quantifiable environmental and economic benefits of using wood as a sustainable building material, develop a cluster of wood energy projects, and it can be used to conduct applied research that engages and involves industry partners to resolve gaps, to lead to readily applied advances in markets. The funding cannot be used for basic research. It needs to be applied. So the submission process, the first thing you should do, if you don't have this already, is get registered in the system for award management. That is how we will give funding, is through that system. And that's sam.gov. And that usually doesn't take a whole long time, but it can take several months if something isn't right. So really make sure you're getting on that as soon as possible to avoid any delays or complications should you be selected. You're going to be submitting 2 separate searchable PDFs. There's part 1, which is your narrative and your budget, which is a maximum of 6 pages. And this year we kind of changed things. We're really looking for more detail in the budget explanations. We want to know what you're spending your money on and how it's going to be benefiting your project. And then that's where you'll have appendices as well, and all your letters of support will be in there, and any other important information that you think is relevant. But we really want the appendices to be super organized and relevant. And then part 2 is financial forms. And the instructions go through all of those, and there's links to them as well. I highly, highly recommend you reach out to your U.S. Forest Service regional coordinator prior to the deadline. So that's me for Region 2, which is Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas. And I'll go over some of the other regional coordinators. But we can really help you give feedback on your project or idea, as well as your actual proposal. So you can send it to us before the deadline, and we can, give you feedback on whether we think it's a strong proposal or not. And then you're going to submit both of those parts, part 1 and 2, to your regional coordinator via email only. So we will not accept any other form of submission. So some key dates: that deadline is January 19th at 5 p.m. in the local regional time. So for people in my region, it would be 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So be sure to reach out to your coordinator before that. Awards are announced in May of 2022, and then approximate date of award is August 2022. Something really important to note is generally we do not cover costs incurred prior to this August date. So prior to the date of the actual award, we don't typically cover those costs. And match cannot be from prior to that award date as either for the Wood Innovations program. There are some exceptions, but you need to get prior approval, and the farthest we'll go back is May 2022, at least for the Wood Innovations program. For community wood, capital costs can be calculated back to October 1st of 2021. So we won't cover costs back to that date, but you can use costs incurred to calculate your capital costs that you use to figure out how much money you can ask for. And if there's questions on that, submit in the chat or in the Q&A. And then these awards are typically 2 to 3 years in length, but they can go up to 5 years, but they cannot be longer than that. So these are the regional contacts, and I have a little map here showing our Forest Service regions. So I'm in the Rocky Mountain region here, so you'll reach out to me if you have questions or want me to go over your application, and then you'll submit to me if you're in Colorado or any of the other states. Southwestern region is Arizona and New Mexico, and you will submit to Mark Estrada, and here's his email. And then the other contact information for the other coordinators is in the instructions. And I'm going to post a link to our website that has links to the instructions and application for both of these programs in the chat after I'm done here. And with that, I will end. So thank you so much. I'm right on time, I think, although I had some technical difficulties. So thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Laura. Great presentation. Yeah, very relevant program. Like Laura said, just yesterday there was a 2-hour webcast on it on the program. Anyway, I'll just get right on to our next. Within the same panel here, we're quite fortunate to have Tyson Nicoll here with us from the member of Arizona Log and TimberWorks, and he's in Region 3, basically Arizona, New Mexico. He's a grant recipient. It's a family-owned and operated business located in eastern Arizona. Started in 2008 with a treating facility for posts and poles. Later, they added a firewood processing to utilize cutoff waste from the posts and poles. And Tyson attended Brigham Young University in Idaho, where he graduated with a bachelor's degree in ag business and economics in 2015. He then went on to work for a large agribusiness called Bunge. Hopefully I got the pronunciation right on that, in the Midwest. After working for a couple of years, he returned to Arizona to work in the family business. In 2020, he graduated with a master's degree in accounting from Auburn University. And so one of his biggest areas of focus has been researching biochar. So when they finally decided that they wanted to produce biochar, they went ahead and applied for and received a U.S. Forest Service grant to help the project get up and going with that. I'll let Tyson take it from there and get to hear his story. Thanks, Tyson.
Perfect. Thanks, Rich. Just pull some notes. I should have just given you more information, and then you could have given my whole everything I had to say. Like I said, I'm Tyson Nicoll with Arizona Logging TimberWorks. I thought it'd be most helpful to tell you just a little bit about us, who we are, limitations that we've had and how that led to our project, and why we applied, and how I felt like we're successful for getting the grant. So we're a utility pole and firewood producer. From our utility poles, we get a lot of shavings, and even from firewood, splitting our firewood, we get a lot of waste, small pieces that can't be used in bundled firewood. Limitations that we have: space for drying material. We have about 10 acres where we sit. We're landlocked. We got companies on both sides of us. And so we have limited space for drying our material. Firewood, especially pine, takes a long time to dry. And so we have to put it in big piles and let it dry for a long time. And then our waste from, our shavings, our firewood, that sort of thing, that is put into a big pile, and it grows and grows and grows until we get enough that it's worth it for someone to come in and grind it and haul it off. So that takes up a lot of space. Drying in the winter months, things don't dry in the winter. So that's just another limitation. We can't dry firewood. We can't dry poles. And then the size of poles we can produce, that's a limitation based on our the size of peelers that we have. And so we applied for the Community Wood Energy Grant because it had a lot more flexibility. Like Laura said, we were going to be dealing with a lot of equipment. And so we wanted help with purchasing some of that equipment if possible. Our project is centered around a biochar system. The biochar system will utilize all of our waste. It will be ground up on site and used to make biochar. That frees up a lot of space for us to dry utility poles or firewood. Also, the biochar system produces a lot more heat than what it needs to make the biochar. And so the excess heat is going to be used to heat a kiln. Initially, the kiln was just going to be a firewood kiln. But as we looked more into it and talked to kiln companies, we decided to make a kiln that would do firewood and dry utility poles. And so it's a front loading kiln, and it's long but not very deep. And so that allows us to do utility poles and to dry firewood. So this also helps us with space, and being able to do more product. So during our busy season for firewood, which is now through February, we can dry more firewood and increase our sales that way. And then with utility poles, we mostly air dry them, but if we got a special order or somebody that needed poles quickly, we could dry those as well. So although I don't know why we were successful in getting the grant, there are things that I feel like we met for the grant. One, we were shovel ready. We were ready to go. We had, we knew this was a project we wanted to do. And as soon as we found out that we got the grant, we started putting orders in for equipment, for our capital costs, that sort of thing. We're using a heat source other than propane, natural gas. The heat is from the biochar we're making an innovative product, which is biochar, and the excess heat is heating a kiln. So that was a big point of the grant. Improve forest health. Our products are mostly from small diameter logs and low value logs. Firewood's not a high value product. Utility poles, we mostly do small poles. And larger peelers can really double our output. And so that helps with improving forest health. Stimulate local economies. We're in an area that has a really high unemployment rate. And so this project is adding several jobs. And so those were 3 points that I had put down that I feel like really hit on what the grant was looking for. that's all I have. I figure if people had questions as far as applying for the grant or yeah, about the grant, I'd leave more time for that.
Okay, we'll come back on. We're kind of right back on track. Thanks for that, Tyson. So yeah, if anybody out there has questions for either Laura or Tyson for the Win Innovations grants, that kind of thing, just go ahead and type them down into your Q&A if you have questions. Also note Laura's she has posted a website that you can find the Wood Innovations Community Wood Programs for everybody. So that's in the chat. If you need to get that link, you can copy it. And okay, it looks like we got a question coming in here from Tim Reeder from State Forest Service up in Colorado. And his question is, did you and your staff write the grant and or seek grant writing assistance?
Sure. So we did write the grant ourselves. Randy, who's the owner of the company, which is my dad, he has done a grant or two in the past and been successful with it. And so I was in charge of writing the grant, and he would critique me and review, and we talked a lot about it. We did several drafts of the grant. We did work with our local coordinator at the time, it was Buck Sanchez, and he gave us feedback. We would send him, we'd get a draft done, we would send it to him, and then we would go through and get feedback from him. But we did not get any outside assistance other than that.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, we're obviously we want to see proposals that are well thought out and well put together, but we're not looking for, it's not a grant writing we're not looking, you don't need to be an amazing writer. So I wouldn't worry about hiring a grant writer unless you really want to and are really worried about it. But yeah, as Tyson said, the coordinators are available to help, and so it's not necessary. We get some universities that of course are amazing grant writers, but we're really looking for the qualities of the project rather than the quality of the writing.
Great. All right, I'll go ahead and say that was answered. And another question coming in from Tabby Bolton. And says, hi Tyson, just wondering how biochar sales are going.
Yeah, that's a good question. They're not yet because I don't have a biochar system yet. We're like the rest of the world, and everything's slow as far as manufacturing. Timeframes have been pushed back. We had hoped to have it a month ago or two, and we're not there yet. Our kiln is showing up now. The biochar system will be here about another month. But I did get an inquiry the other day about a truckload of biochar to go to Tucson. I couldn't fill that order because we didn't have the system here. Another thing that from our grant, biochar can be used for more than just soil additives. It can also be a filtration device. We have interest from a local power plant to use biochar in mercury removal at the power plant. And that's part of our what we submitted in our grant. And so once we do get our biochar system here, we will run tests at the power plant to see if it will do as good a job as what they're using now. And so that could be a good outlet for our product.
Great. I don't have any other questions I'm showing in the Q&A. Yeah, that's kind of neat with using it for the power plants. I know when we were up in Colorado, they were using it for, mining reclamation, that kind of thing, for applying to old mining sites. So
yeah, it can also be used in water filtration. that's another market that I know people are trying to develop. There's a group out of Missouri that's working in water filtration with biochar. So
great. Yeah, well, good questions. Looks like we're a little bit over, but we're still pretty much on schedule. But thanks again, everybody. Big hand for Laura and Tyson for that part of the panel. Great, yeah, good information. With that, we'll just we'll move on to our next panel, and we have with us Carlos Contreras, and he is the business programs loan specialist and energy coordinator for USDA rural development. And he's going to be presenting on the both the program description and also grant case study for Rural Energy for America program and some value-added producer grants. And I'll let Carlos introduce himself. Thanks for coming, Carlos.
Hey, thank you for having us. We appreciate being here. My name is Carlos Contreras. I'm a loan specialist and energy coordinator for USDA Rural Development here in New Mexico at the state office. Been with the agency about 13 years. Started my career in the community programs, which was mostly water, wastewater infrastructure projects, and moved into the business section about 4 years ago, doing guaranteed loan financing, and then becoming a REAP coordinator, rural energy coordinator for USDA. USDA has over 40 loan and grant and technical assistance opportunities available. And we really are here to help with the rural areas of the countries. So New Mexico definitely is rural in a lot of senses, and most of the populations we're looking at are 50,000 or less in population. And we're here to assist the rural small businesses and ag producers for work that they need to have done. The Rural Energy for America program, known as REAP, this program helps increase American energy independence. It increases the private sector supply of renewable energy and reduces the demand for energy consumption by using more efficient products. Over time, these investments can help also lower the costs of energy for small businesses and agriculture producers. The type of REAP projects are renewable energy systems, known as RES, energy efficiency improvements, known as EEI, energy efficiency equipment, known as EEE. You get to learn all these acronyms over time. This program is only eligible for agriculture producers, and this is a guarantee loan only program. And then we also have an energy audit and renewable energy development assistance grant, known as EA-RETA. And typical applicants are universities, state and local governments, tribal entities that can apply for this program to assist with energy assessments and audits for rural small businesses and ag producers. Who is eligible for REAP? The rural small businesses are those that do not exceed the SBA size standard thresholds designated by the industry or their industry. And so that could be either the gross annual income of an industry or the number of employees for that industry. So a hotel could be $30 million under SBA and be applicable, whereas a manufacturing entity may have 1,000 employees. If it's below that threshold, it could be eligible for the program. Again, 50,000 or less in population. You have to be a for-profit business, or you could be a cooperative that files under a 501c12. Other nonprofits, such as 501c3s, are not eligible for the program. Also, an electric utility, including tribal or governmental electric utilities, are eligible. And we would look at the tribal enterprise portion of the business to be considered for the eligibility under the tribal government. Agriculture producers, and it's an individual or entity, nonprofits directly engaged in production of agricultural products. And this could include labor management, operations, cultivating, growing, harvesting of plants, trees, even in this sense, as we're talking about forestry products, and the farm feeding and housing of livestock are eligible types of agricultural producers. And 50% of their or greater of their gross income has to be derived from the operations of that business. What funding is available? So the maximum grant is a 25% of the total project eligibility costs. Similar to the other grant you listened to, this is a reimbursement grant only. So you do have to have the means to pay for the project upfront after the project has been awarded and eligible, deemed eligible, and the project is complete, is when the reimbursement would kick in to the applicant. So we can do up to 500,000 in renewable energy systems, and then up to 250,000 on the energy efficient improvements for a business. You can also do loan guarantees up to 75% of the total eligible cost, and you can combine the grant and the loan guarantee up to 75%, and the applicant would need 25% of their own funds for the project. For renewable energy systems, the minimum is 2,500 and the grant request with a maximum of 500,000. The energy efficiency grants is a minimum of 1,500 and a maximum of 250,000. The guarantee loans have a 5,000 minimum loan grant amount. I'm sorry, 5,000 loan amount with a maximum of 25 million on a loan request. Currently under the fiscal year 22, the maximum is 80% guarantee to the lender. We do have a 1% initial guarantee fee that can be rolled into the loan, and has a 0.25%, 0.25 of annual renewal fee that's collected January 31st of every year for the guaranteed loan principal balance. If you're applying for a combination loan grant, you do have to have those in place at the time of application. Otherwise, it's going to be considered just a grant if you don't have the guarantee funding in place. The maximum loan can go out to 40 years on the term, and the rates, and that would be negotiated with the lender and the borrower. Types of renewable energy would be solar and wind, small hydraulic under 30 megawatts, anaerobic digesters, biodiesel fuels, that type of thing. The projects that sometimes include a solar project within a business that might have a residential aspect to that business, whether it's a real small business or an ag producer. Typically, what we do with residential pieces is that we ask that we include a second meter for solar instances. This way we can show the solar being generated for the business output, and then what the residential is, because we cannot do any type of residential businesses, including Airbnbs, farm labor housing, apartment complexes, that type of thing. The eligible project types for energy efficiencies can include lighting, HVAC systems, fans, automated controls, agricultural producers such as greenhouse businesses, poultry farms. They all utilize these types of energy efficiencies to help with offsetting or reducing their current cost of energy. Small businesses, they can vary from veterinary clinics to restaurants, warehouses, manufacturing, that type of thing. Again, food co-ops as a 501c12 is eligible for the program. Additional requirements, a feasibility study may be required based on the risk of the project. Energy efficiency greater than 200,000 will require an energy audit. If the project is less than 200,000, then an energy assessment is applicable. All projects do require an environmental review. Just the level of the detail may depend on the project itself. So if we're looking at projects that involve 10 acres or more, certainly like a phase 1 environmental may be required for that project. Full technical reports are due or are required for hydrogen projects, geothermals, that type of thing. If it's a mature technology such as solar or geothermal, then a technical report would not be required for that type of project. For REAP, for the renewable energy and the energy efficiency, we have deadlines for the program. We just had one that passed on November 1st, and these were for grant requests of 20,000 or less. And so those ones competed just for that pool of money. March 31st will be for all project sizes. So 20,000 or below or above. And so like last year, we had about $806,000 in grant opportunities to provide to real small businesses and ag producers. We probably put about 160,000 back, so we didn't get to utilize a lot of the money, but we did have about 16 applications that came in for this for last year's funding. And the best thing to do is sometimes these applications can take some time, and so you want to start with talking with an RD staff member to talk about your project. If there's concern about environmentals, what might be required, or maybe feasibility study, it's good to try to get those all in place so that we can have a good application when that time comes. The maximum scoring that we do for a project is 100%, with the minimum being at 50 points for a viable application. The guarantee loans for these projects are accepted year-round, and for fiscal year 22, the deadline to apply would be September 30th, 2022. Again, the Federal Register would determine annually what the guarantee fee rates are, the renewal fees at the maximum percentage of the guarantee. And in this case, for fiscal year 22, it's going to be 80% with a 1% guarantee fee and the 0.25 annual renewal fee. And again, if you're going to apply for both the grant and the guarantee, they have to be combined together at the same time. So New Mexico doesn't do a whole lot of biomass projects. I wish we would actually do more. I had to search a little bit nationwide to find some projects, and but here's a project that was done out of Naples, Maine. This project realized about $3,723 in savings per year, and it generated 2.5 MMBTUs annually, replacing 95% of the business's heating needs. And they were a recipient of a REAP grant in 2020, and they installed this outdoor wood boiler to help offset their reliance on regular fuel oil to heat their shop. The business's line of work provided the renewable source like the wood logs, chips, and brush to power the boiler for free, basically. The unit's larger size allows mechanical machine loading of the logs that can be up to 9 foot in length. Later in my presentation, you'll see a link that you can go to. If you're interested in some of the type of projects that have been done through our success stories, you can go there and take a look at what's been completed. I'm going to pass this particular slide. The energy efficiency equipment is really geared towards the agricultural producers. It's similar to the EEI, but in this case, you're not having to show the need of replacing in a particular equipment. All you have to do with this program is going to be, or this type of assistance is going to be for increasing the or exceeding the current efficiency of equipment that you might have. And this is only a guarantee loan that's not and is only available to agricultural producers. I mentioned earlier about the energy audit and renewable energy development assistance, known as EA-RETA. Like I said, the university and state and local governments and tribal entities can apply for this grant to help with conducting technical assistance and energy audits to rural small businesses and ag producers. Very good tool. Some businesses have utilized this with like New Mexico State University. They go out and do these energy audits, and they are able to come back with ways to improve their facility and be able to utilize our programs, whether it's going to be renewable energy systems or replacing the LED lightings or replacing lighting to LED, maybe HVAC systems and what have you to improve their efficiencies. The deadline for this particular grant is January 31st, and they should be submitted to grants.gov, or they can be accepted by one of the rural development offices no later than 4:30 p.m. on January 31st. One thing to note is that you can apply for an EA grant and you can apply for a RETA grant, but you can't have them both in the same application. If you do that, they will be deemed ineligible. So you want to be able to separate those two type of grant opportunities if you're applying for both. The next thing I want to talk about real quick is the value-added producer grant. And the purpose of this is to provide funds for economic planning activities or eligible working capital expenses to enable a viable agricultural producer to develop businesses and produce and market value-added agricultural products, and to create marketing opportunities for such businesses. How may the funds be used? Grant and matching funds can be used for planning activities and working capital expenses related to producing the market value-added producer agricultural product. Examples of planning activities include conducting feasibility studies and developing business plans for processing and marketing the proposed value-added product. And the examples here for working capital is processing costs, marketing and advertising expenses, and some inventory and salary expenses. There are 5 different types of applicants. You have a harvester, independent producer, agricultural producer group, farmer or rancher cooperatives, and majority control producer-based businesses. I do have a link here as well with the contact information for this particular coordinator who does the VAPG. But for a quick example on harvesters, a logger who has legal right to access and harvest logs from the forest and then converts them into boards or something like that, that would be kind of an eligible applicant for as a harvester. Again, as I mentioned, there's 2 types of grants in this. One is the planning grant, and that it will help with the feasibility and marketing of a product. And then the working capital grant, which is the actual expenses related to processing and marketing. For fiscal year 22, right now it hasn't been said as to what the amount of funding will be. Last year, the agency for New Mexico funded $763,000 in awards. The deadline right now is to be determined, so we haven't don't know when that's going to occur. Probably sometime in January is kind of when we'll be notified for the program. The maximum awards for planning is $75,000 and $250,000 for working capital. The matching requirements is a 1-to-1 match, and 50% of the total project costs can be cash or can be eligible in kind, such as inventory of the raw commodity can be a contribution for project eligible purposes. This grant, you have 3 years to utilize the grant. I should go back and say about the REAP grant, you will have 2 years to complete your project for renewable energy or energy efficiency. So you got 2 years on REAP and up to 3 years on the VAPG program. Here's a quick success story for Mount Taylor Manufacturing LLC. They are headquartered in Milan, New Mexico, with operations in Albuquerque. And they were a wood processing manufacturing plant and machine shop, and their products and services include sawmill services, that should be wood pellets, sorry, playground chips, etc. Mount Taylor Manufacturing was a successful awardee of the VAPG program twice. The first award was to help them market their firewood. And then the second award was provided them the ability to market and package and design of supplies and pay for utility expenses for the production of the wood pellets. So you can kind of see what they've done here with their marketing of the bags for that. Contact information, Ray Melton is the program director for the state of New Mexico for business programs. I am the coordinator for the REAP programs. Kathy Barrett is the value added producer grant. And in our BNI program, which is the Business and Industry Guarantee Loan Program, that program can be utilized with the REAP program and the Guarantee Loan Program out of the REAP to leverage all those types of funds within the agency. Below is our website. And if you click on that website and then you type in the search field a REAP or a VAPG success story, it'll come up with a bunch of projects that have been done nationwide. And so you can kind of get a feel of some of those projects that are out there for specialty projects like yours in the wood section. And with that, I will end my presentation. Thank you.
Hey, Carlos, thanks for that. Great. I think we're pretty much almost right on track here. So anyway, at this point, we kind of open it up to Q&A questions down in the screen below. Remember to, if you have questions, type them into that Q&A box there, and we'll try to address them. And not seeing any right now. One just popped up. Tim Reeder. Carlos, does the USDA Rural Development maintain a list of universities or other entities that provide energy audits under your program?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Wasn't sure if I was muted or not. Yeah, so like for the state of New Mexico, we have NMSU, we have the Eastern New Mexico University do that. So each state might have its own energy assessments that are out there. So I would get with, if you're in Arizona, take a look and see what the University of Arizona might have. But we don't keep a list, but we can reach out to our coordinators in USDA in Arizona to determine if they've got some key contacts. I'll make a note of that.
Great. So we've got another question from Melissa Simmons. Thank you, Carlos. Could you repeat the value added producer grant amounts and match details?
Yeah, let me go back to that real quick here. Okay, so she's looking for the, okay, so the maximum award for the planning grant is 75,000. And for the working capital, it's 250,000. And it's a 1-to-1 match for the project. And I'm sorry, what was the second? Was that the question?
The match, yeah, the match details. So it's 1-to-1 for both.
Yes, both working capital and the planning grant.
So 75 and 250.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Yeah. So we got some question. There's a question, another question, and I don't see any popping up, but I had a question for you. Do you have contact information for your counterpart in the in Arizona and Colorado.
Yes, I sure do. Is that something that you want to provide now, or do you want me to maybe send it to you in an email and you can give it to the group?
Yeah, you can. I mean, that's something I could get from you after the fact. I don't want to bother you for now.
Yeah, I do have it for the Southwest region, but actually for the whole nation, I've got the contacts. I can send that to you.
Okay, and they would be kind of similar to what you do as far as the business program loan specialist.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, because that's great. That's great information, though. And like again, we appreciate you coming and presenting the program.
Sure. Thank you.
And anyway, we're take advantage of this. You actually got us ahead of schedule, Carlos. Thanks.
A little tongue tied,
Appreciate
but
it.
we get it through there. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll move. I guess we'll move on. And thanks again, Carlos.
Thank you very much.
So we already got our next panel queued up with we've got New Mexico Economic Development Department. We've got Tim Hagaman. He's the regional rep for the Northeast Front Range Community Business and Rural Development Team, New Mexico Economic Development Department. He elected to introduce himself, so I'll let Tim take it from here. He's got the whole presentation, the program description, and case study. Thanks for coming, Tim.
Good morning, Rich. Do you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Fantastic. Rich is one of the hardest working guys in the Southwest, so I appreciate all of his help. My name is Tim Hagaman. I work for the State of New Mexico Economic Development Department. I'm a public servant who serves our secretary, Alicia Keys, and she sits on the cabinet of Michelle Lujan Grisham, our governor of New Mexico. I have been working for the Economic Development Department for 16 years. During that, I serve as the community rural business development representative, and I serve a 7-county area in the Front Range of New Mexico. I'm located in Moore and am housed at Moore County Courthouse. I've had the opportunity of, in the capacity as a tribal liaison, I've worked with various forestry projects, such as reopening up the mill in Reserve, New Mexico. And I'll be talking a little bit about the Cimarron sawmill later on in a case study. So I'm going to begin the program with talking about our department in regards to the initiatives that our leadership has provided. And one of the first initiatives was to develop a EDA grant for the recovery during the pandemic. So we, in 2020, New Mexico Economic Development Department was awarded an EDA grant to assist with economic recovery, but also to increase capacity. With the funds, we were able to hire 4 newly created positions known as the Recovery Squad. And at the beginning picture, we have Jennifer Myers, is the statewide disaster recovery coordinator. And her focus is to, in outreach, direct outreach with businesses, and to help to coordinate efforts to facilitate business growth. She works closely with the Council of Governments and their recovery coordinators, and has a great network of working with those businesses and Council of Governments. Next, we have Felicia DePaula. She's our program development specialist, and she helps with the statewide plan and the rural efficiency business program. So the rural efficiency business program is in partnership with New Mexico State University in regards to working with businesses to isolate how they can use energy efficiency better, and collaborate with Carlos with our USDA program. Next in the picture is Alex Greenberg, and he's our financial program specialist. He's the point person for FundIt, which I'll talk about a little later, as well as our opportunity zones. So you can learn more about our opportunity zones at nmopportunity.com. And then we've opened up collaboration with other agencies within the Economic Development Department with the Energy and Minerals Department. I serve under our department working with the Watershed and Restoration Act Advisory Board. And John Whitscott is with the Energy and Minerals Department, and he is our newest member of our team, and he is the Economic and Energy Diversification Coordinator, and he supports renewable energy companies in New Mexico. So this is an outstanding team of specialists that are working on recovery within the fifth largest state in the United States. Some of the regional disaster recovery coordinators are listed here within the Council of Governments Economic Development Districts. And our Southeast region is Debbie Lee. Southwest region, Joe McLinnock. Eastern Plains region out of Clovis, Jason Espinoza. North Central region out of Santa Fe is Felicia Forseca. Mid region is Peyton Showalter. And in the Southwest region out of Silver City is Kitty Clemens. And out of the Northwestern Council of Governments that I used to work at in Gallup was Eric Chivalda. And there are 7 of those. And they
Tim?
connect.
Hey, Tim, are you sharing a screen? I had a question come in that, is there a screen you're sharing that?
Yes, I thought I was.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Somebody pointed that out. I got a Q&A.
So should I end slideshow now?
Yeah, yeah, I guess you would end it and then maybe try to do it again. Perhaps there was some kind of technical glitch or something. So is it showing that you're sharing your screen?
I can't tell. So I'll go to slideshow again.
Hopefully, let me make sure with Damon that he's been given permission to share screen or whatever, sometimes in the webinar format.
Do you see anything with my slide right now?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah, the panelists currently have permission to share. Tim, there should be a green share screen button in your Zoom controls. It's most likely on the bottom.
Ah, there we go.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, thanks for whoever the Q&A was anonymous. Thanks.
So one of the programs that we offer is our collateral assistance program for businesses. And this encourages to make loans to small businesses in underserved markets. New Mexico Economic Development can pledge cash to cover a collateral shortfall of a loan in order to enable financing. The financing, this translates to cash support up to 50% of the principal with a maximum of $250,000 for under collateralized loans. The uses for funds will include tangible and intangible assets and purchase startup costs, such as working capital, franchise fees, equipment, and inventory. To learn more about the program, click on the link on the slide. So we want to help assist lumberers in regards to the succession of these businesses and translate into increased equipment purchases so that they can get into restoration work and give them the opportunity to hire local workers, such as in the Mora County areas, for example, where I'm located. We're working with them to create a cooperative. So this allows people that are having a difficult time coming up with credit or the required collateral that the bank is requiring. So we work with USDA in regards to federal guarantees, as well as the local banks in regards to getting them over the finish line to get the money to purchase new equipment. So what we're going to talk about now is the Business Recovery Grant Program. Is in 2021, the legislative session provided $200 million in grant funding in New Mexico small businesses that are experiencing financial hardships due to the pandemic. These grants are specifically tied to job creation, must be used as reimbursements of rent, lease, or mortgage payments, and are prioritized based on the severity of economic decline experienced by the business. This program is administered by the New Mexico Finance Authority on behalf of the New Mexico Economic Development Department. The change is the legislation also included restaurants and small retailers. The deadline for application is rapidly approaching. December 7th is the last day to submit an application for this grant opportunity. There is still funding available for the program, so please take advantage if you are eligible. To apply, just click on the link above. So as you say that date, November 17th, we will be putting on a Business Recovery Grant Program webinar. And this will be an opportunity for you to know whether you are eligible for the program. And Jennifer Myers will be hosting a webinar featuring the New Mexico Finance Authority so that they can provide their technical assistance and working on through this online loan program and for the grant program. And if you would like to learn more about your eligibility with grant calculations and eligible uses for funds, please plan on attending. So save the date, November 17th at 10 a.m. and sign up to register. So with the Small Business Recovery Loan Fund 2021, this is another program that is administered by the New Mexico Finance Authority, the Small Business Recovery Loan Fund. And this program is a loan, not a grant, compared to the last one we talked about. The program was expanded in the 2021 session to make it availability nearly 500 million to provide loans to businesses that experience financial hardships resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. So eligibility is listed on the slide. Business must have had an annual net revenue of at least 5 million, less than 5 million in 2019 or 2020, and experience a substantial disruption or decline in gross revenue. The interest rate is 1/2 of the Wall Street Journal prime rate on the date of the loan is approved. And currently the interest rate is 1.625%. The loan term will be 10 years. Eligible expenses include ordinary and necessary business expenses. And the loan amount is 3 times the average monthly expenses from 2019 or 2020, with the loan amount is capped at 150,000. So one of the ways that we communicate with all of our businesses and community partnerships with economic development organizations is our weekly wrap up. And this weekly recovery team put together this email that goes out at the end of the week, every week. And you can sign up for that at edd.newmexico.gov. As you are well aware, it is difficult to stay current on local, state, and federal programs. So we highlight funding opportunities, free resources, promote webinars, and focus on economic recovery. We list any updates on the SBA, USDA, New Mexico Finance Authority, and state programs. And the wrap-up will include any relevant articles, community resources, and any recent webinar recordings that you may have missed. It is a wealth of information, and I would encourage everyone to sign up if you are not already. So now we're going to work into our FundIt program. Can you see on the slide okay, Rich?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, FundIt is our pitch showcase for economic development projects. So someone that's interested in the forestry industry can submit an application, which we're taking applications right now through the end of November for our December meeting. And this is a way of bringing together all of the 20-some state, federal, and private organizations, and they meet on a quarterly basis and review applications. The state has the link to the website where you can get some information up above on the slide. But for a brief overview, FundIt is a gathering place to learn about development finance opportunities through monthly webinars, crowdsourcing information, and groups and program highlights on a quarterly basis through the CoLab meeting. At the quarterly meeting, the selected projects have the chance to connect with more than 20 agencies, and with the goal of receiving funding through those agency programs and resources. The next CoLab meeting will be on December 14th, and the application deadline is November 29th. We'll find the link and additional information on the weekly wrap up. So if you're interested in applying for FundIt, go to the website and help one of your businesses complete the summary. And this will allow them to be eligible projects, including business development, incubators, industrial parks, community development, feasibility studies, comprehensive plans, infrastructure development for increasing capacity, or updating or replacing existing structures, housing, and critical shortages and opportunity zones. And Alex Greenberg heads our FundIt program, and he can help you in regards to the eligibility and review of the project checklist that is on the website. So the required information includes scope for the project, what community stakeholders are involved, how will the project be impactful. You have to include a status report where you, in regards to terms of shovel ready, and how does the planning and project management look like, the needs and the funding, and what is your outstanding financial need? What other capital or resources have you secured already? Excellent questions for any economic development project in the forest. So after an application is submitted, we review and assess the main criteria. What will be the community impact? What is the scope and vision of the project? Does it fill in with the current agencies and organizations who are a part of the FundIt Alliance? And then the Alliance of a group of 20 will hear that presentation, and their mission is to be a catalyst for economic development to benefit New Mexico communities. And if your project is selected, you will be invited to a quarterly meeting where you will present with a 5-minute pitch, and then we'll go through the room and see if any organization have ideas or resources that may be useful. The goal is the creation of capital stacks, either in the form of social capital, in the term of introduction, intellectual capital, in the terms of a new idea or direction, or financial capital in the form of resources and funding from the Alliance members, reporting organizations. Again, the real meeting will be December 14th. So thank you very much for your patience throughout my presentation. What I'd like to do now, if I have time, is would like to review a case study involving land forest products, has been in business over 60 years. And they're in Northern California, and they are in the process of relocating to Cimarron, New Mexico. Their father got started in the business, and the Lance brothers had operated a mill in Pagosa Springs, where grew up in the Trinidad area, and we're very familiar with the private lands that are one of the great assets of northeastern New Mexico. And we have very large ranches that are privately owned. So Cimarron historically had a sawmill before it had burned down. And there was a great need to diversify the workforce. Cimarron is known for its historic Maxwell land grant and Philmont Scout Ranch, where I went there in '74 as an Eagle Scout, and later on as a Walking Wood Badge, the last program that Philmont offered. And so they are in the process of purchasing the former sawmill property from Growell. And this has been a project that requires a lot of patience, and encourage all of the attendees to work with your businesses and your communities with a lot of patience in regards to completing these projects. We started in 2018. During the pandemic, it was we had obstacles in regards to financing the project. So what we did was the state of New Mexico works with the client, and we determined that through the secretary's direction that they would qualify for $350,000 in Local Economic Development Act funding. And this is a 3-year commitment on their part to provide a certain amount of capital and funding for building out the sawmill, as well as hiring 40 employees in exchange for the incentives that the state provides. They have to provide security, a local ordinance through the village of Cimarron, and a participation agreement, as well as an intergovernmental agreement between the state economic development department. So we go through the announcement, and we were able to work with the Cimarron and our Department of Finance in regards to offering $500,000 to our CDBG program, Community Development Block grant through the HUD administration. And that will go toward infrastructure and wastewater improvements to the sawmill. During this process, we're working with the Pivotal grant program out of Albuquerque with Terry Bruner, former USDA state director. And he's walking the customer through the financing that network that he has. He's brought in Dream Spring out of Albuquerque in regards to a bridge loan and funding to pay off the construction loan. And then we're working with Farmers and Stockmans out of Clayton, New Mexico in regards to the construction loan. And so it's a collaboration of economic development organizations, county commissioners, a team of forestry personnel. We work closely with the state forester through the Energy and Minerals Department, as well as various environment department and feasibility study. I'm reviewing one right now for a biomass opportunity in Moore County. And we want to look at all of the outtake agreements that we can provide in regards to offering value-added products, as well as drying and heating and opportunities. As the Lance brothers complete these agreements with Philmont Scout Ranch for Mayo Park, all these major ranch operations that are located in northern New Mexico. So I'd like to end my presentation with encouragement that New Mexico is a fantastic place to do business, and would love to learn more about any opportunities that we can work with our state team. We have regional reps throughout the state located in Las Cruces, Roswell, Albuquerque, Bernalillo, Santa Fe, and Mora. And you can learn more at edd.newmexico.gov. Thank you, Rich.
Great, Tim. Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah, and Tim, right back at you. He's one of the hardest working people in northern New Mexico. At the last minute, he had to take over. Originally, it was a team presentation of 3 people. He did the whole thing. So at the last minute too. So it's yeah, we appreciate the presentation. I mean, at this time we've got some time for some questions. We got about 4 minutes or so. So if anybody wants to post any questions in the Q&A for Tim, or just, it's right there. I got it open. And if nobody else has a question, I have a question for you on the case study with the Cimarron mill. I think mainly because I'm familiar with that area up there. So I used to work over the hill for Duke City. So we bought a lot of timber over that way. Have they secured some of the private land grant folks? Have they been able to work with those folks as far as getting a sustainable supply for the plant?
Yeah, we've had various studies done through the years to determine what kind of supply that is available in a 100-mile radius. And they have agreements with most of all the branch operations and are involved with the watershed, Cimarron watershed. So I think that they're in a fantastic location. But we also look at, from a regional standpoint, we have the Las Vegas Wood Park. We've got Old Wood out of Las Vegas, part of our program with Schwery, and we have Western out of Las Vegas. We have the Silver Dollar shavings out of Maxwell. A lot of value-added manufacturers that require material out of these same partners that we're working with. So I also work with the New Mexico land grants. I attend all their monthly meetings and partner with them in regards to looking for opportunities to find more product for the lumber industry, as well as encourage them to develop value-added products.
Great. Yeah, appreciate it. I think we're just about at the time right now as far as the presentation. And again, we really appreciate you putting together everything for us for New Mexico Economic Development Department. And yeah, good luck over there. And I hopefully we'll see you next week, hopefully in Albuquerque.
Yes, I'm all registered, ready to go.
Great.
Looking forward to meeting everyone. I've
Great.
attended a lot of them through the years.
All right, Tim, thank you. We're gonna move on and look forward to meeting you. All right, well, I mean, it looks like we're right on track here. 9:35. Next up, we have a panel. Last but not least, U.S. Department of Commerce, our Economic Development Administration grants panel. First up, again, we have another person here who stepped up to the plate at the last minute. And I'll have to let Asia introduce herself, but she is the Economic Development Representative for the for our area right here, right now in this region. So I'll let Cindy Patak was supposed to do the presentation, but she's moved on, and it's sorry to see Cindy go, but I'll have to let Asia introduce herself and we'll get some information on the EDA program. Thanks again, Asia.
Yeah, it's great to meet all of you guys virtually and to have this opportunity to introduce myself as Cindy's temporary replacement in the state of Arizona. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen here, and I want to make sure that everyone can see it properly. How is that? Does that look all right? You can see the slides? All right. So yes, my name is Asia, and I am what is called an economic development representative for the Economic Development Administration, which is the federal agency under the Department of Commerce. I'm based out of the Seattle Regional Office, which covers all of the West Coast, as well as Alaska, Hawaii, the Pacific Island Territories, Nevada, Idaho, and Arizona. So New Mexico actually falls under a different region, and Colorado does as well. And so I'm happy after this presentation to connect anyone in those states with my colleagues in that region. I actually live here in California and represent Central California, and am happy to serve the state of Arizona for the next couple of months while we look for a permanent economic development representative. Today, I'm going to give you all a very brief overview of the Economic Development Administration, or the EDA's funding programs, including programs that are responding to the economic impacts of the pandemic. This is going to be a lot of information. There's too much to share today, too many details. So please know that I will share these slides for anyone that would like them. And I am available to answer questions or connect with you after today. That's my position. I'm considered a field representative for the administration. And so I'm happy to jump on the phone, jump on the Zoom, or email back and forth about your ideas and projects and how the EDA might be able to help you. So a little bit more about the EDA. We're a small grant serving agency, and we are looking to create jobs. We want to create jobs. We want to spur economic development and entrepreneurship and increase private investment, specifically in economically distressed communities. Our mission is really to lead the federal economic development agenda by promoting innovation and competitiveness, preparing America's regions for growth and success in the worldwide economy. So in other words, we exist and work with local communities and regions to help them realize their economic development goals by funding projects that create high wage, high skilled jobs. And we want to help businesses flourish or industries flourish, such as the forestry industry. So the EDA has really prioritized funding economic development work that targets these 7 areas that you see listed here on the slide. You can see the in-depth definition of each of these priorities on the EDA website, which is linked here on the slide. But I want to point to the 2 that we're really most concerned with today in light of our current the current administration, presidential administration, but also in light of where the nation is at with the pandemic. First and foremost, the EDA is looking to fund projects that will directly benefit underserved populations or underserved communities within geographies that have been systemically or systematically denied a full opportunity to participate in economic prosperity. So that's populations maybe in rural areas that haven't had access to federal funding. That can look like businesses or industries that work with women, communities that are predominantly non-English speaking or people of color, and then communities that have struggled with persistent poverty. low-income communities, communities that just haven't had a lot of capacity or access to resources. So that is really a huge focus of our funding right now. And then, of course, the second one I'd like to highlight is recovery and resilience. In light of the current pandemic, we are particularly focused on funding projects that help with economic recovery and create resilience to future economic shocks. So, for example, like those experienced by coal communities, those like the communities that have been impacted by natural disasters, or of course, any community that has been impacted by the pandemic, which I'm pretty sure is every community right now. So who is eligible for EDA funding? So just to start off, I want to highlight that EDA funding is not meant to go directly to the private sector. The purpose of these grants are to create infrastructure programs and projects that make that allow the private sector to flourish. But the applicants that are eligible to receive and manage those funds are governments, state and local jurisdictions, tribal nations, nonprofit and for-profit tribal entities that are working on behalf of a tribe, and institutions of higher education. We also fund nonprofit organizations, or they're eligible to apply for funds, as long as they are working in tandem and in partnership with local governments. So where do we fund projects? I think I touched on equity and how we really want to fund projects that target underserved communities. In the before times, prior to the pandemic, it's actually required to receive EDA funding that a community must meet particular economic distress criteria to receive funding. So that can be met through low or high unemployment rates, a low per capita incomes, high poverty rates, for example, may qualify a community. There's also a special needs category that a community might fall under that qualifies them. These are communities that are experiencing economic shocks caused by industry closure or by a natural disaster. One example is I live here in California and we have a nuclear power plant that's going to be closing in the next few years. So the community I live in is eligible to receive funds. Another example might be a community that has been dependent and integrated with the coal industry for years. And maybe that transition away from coal is putting them in an economic shock for an economic transition. And so that would make them qualify for under the special needs category. And then of course, right now, because of the pandemic, we are all communities are considered eligible to receive funds. So like I said, today I want to touch on just a few of our programs, as there's kind of too many to go over all of them, but in non-disaster times or in non-pandemic times, we have a couple regularly funded programs that Congress gives us a budget for every year. And the two programs that might be most applicable to this group today are the Public Works Program and the Economic Adjustment Assistance Program. And there's tons of information on our website for both these programs and our disaster programs that you can go and check out, and I can direct you there, of course. But just to get started, our Public Works Program awards grants to fund a portion of infrastructure construction projects. So these are construction projects that will help spur investment and create high skill, high wage jobs in a community. This can look like anything from traditional infrastructure, so roads, sewer, electric lines for that target a particular area that is facilitating work for a particular industry, like the forestry industry. It can also, another example is it might fund the extension of municipal wet utilities to a site that is being developed that's going to serve multiple businesses or industries. But it can also fund high tech infrastructure. So think broadband, facilities for workforce training programs or business incubators. And generally in normal times, these grants are between $1 million and $3 million. And just to note for all of our programs, particularly this one, the way that you put forward a successful and competitive application is by showing how your project will increase the number of jobs for specific businesses that have committed to the area or that will be impacted by the project. So we like to see those employers and those businesses be in support of the project and to basically show how it will benefit their business. The Economic Adjustment Assistance Program is quite a bit more diverse. The purpose of this program is to fund projects that help communities undergoing significant economic upheaval, such as the closing of a major industry or power plant, or a community that's experienced some kind of economic shock. This grant can fund both construction or non-construction projects. So it funds everything that the Public Works program funds, but it also funds non-construction work, such as revolving loan funds, as you heard in the last presentation. This program can also pay for things like feasibility studies, market analysis, design and engineering for a future project, any activity that kind of gets a project, an implementation project, closer to being shovel ready. And in normal times, this funding is usually between $50,000 and $300,000. But as I'll show you on this next slide, the current pots of funding are quite a bit larger than that. So I'm sure you all have heard of the American Rescue Act funding, or ARPA. This is a historic investment in supporting bottom-up economic development focused on advancing equity, creating good paying jobs, helping workers to develop in-demand skills, building economic resilience, and accelerating the economic recovery for the industries and communities hardest hit by the coronavirus pandemic. Of particular note to the Southwest are the funds that are set aside for coal communities and Indigenous communities. Specifically, nationwide, $200 million has been prioritized to fund projects in communities that have been dependent on the coal industry. And $100 million has been set aside for tribal communities or Indigenous communities. Now, keep in mind that these numbers sound really large, but they are the nationwide funding amount. And so our region has been given a smaller pot that we then distribute across those communities. There are a number of other programs in this notice of funding, in this new ARPA funding. And I can't go into detail on all of them today, but I am going to touch on a couple. One, and this is very new to the EDA, is our tourism. It's called the Travel, Tourism, and Outdoor Recreation Program. And this is targeted at communities that have really strong tourism industries that have been really hardest hit by the pandemic. These funds will go to, these grants will go to fund economic development strategies and implementation projects, both construction and non-construction, targeting the tourism industry specifically. Finally, I want to end by highlighting a nationwide grant competition centered around workforce development. This is also a little different for the EDA. Under ARPA, this is called the Good Jobs Challenge, and it's seeking to fund regions to strengthen regional workforce training systems and sectoral partnerships. It wants to do this by creating and implementing industry-driven training programs designed to connect the unemployed communities or underemployed workers with skilled and emerging job openings and opportunities. And of course, I can follow up with more info later on that. While our normal program funding, we accept applications on a rolling basis. You can turn it in any time of the year. The ARPA funding, Congress has given us a very tight deadline. And so if you have projects that you would like to submit, like infrastructure projects or other ARPA type of projects, make sure to come to your economic development representative, depending on the state that you're in, and we can discuss timelines, what's going to fit under a certain program. One more thing I didn't mention was that the normal grant amounts that I discussed, between 1 and 3 million for the public works program, or up to 300,000 for the economic adjustment assistance program. The ARPA is allowing for much larger funding amounts. So the grant amounts are much larger just in this specific period of time. So if you are in Arizona, please feel free to contact me. If you're not in Arizona, you can contact me and I will get you in touch with whatever economic development representative is in your state. And that is all I have for the moment.
Great, thanks. Appreciate it, Asia. We'll go ahead, if you could hang out for a little bit. I'm going to real quick introduce our next up for our case grant recipient discussion. Dr. Han-Sup, and he's a professor and director of forest operations biomass utilization at Ecological Restoration Institute here at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. He manages research projects designed to improve the efficiency of in-woods operations and wood biomass utilization. Current project activities at NAU focus on the development of the forest industry to expand markets for wood and biomass resulting from fuel reduction and forest restoration thinnings, treatments, as well as timber operations. I'm going to cut it off there. He's got an extensive background, but I'd like to for sure hear about his experience with as a grant recipient. There you go. Thanks, Han, for coming.
Great. Thank you, Rich. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Han-Sup, and I am very happy to be here and share my experience of working with the EDA. I joined the NAU 4 years ago, and since I've been here, I've been hearing a lot about we have a limited capacity in the forest industry, which has been causing some delays in the implementation of forest operations, especially focusing on the fuel reduction, thinning treatment, and forest restoration operation. And that they are designed to improve the forest health and reduce the fire danger. But because of there is a limited capacity in the forest operations and the forest products manufacturing with the industry, the public agency and the local community could not be has not been able to carry out the large scale implementation of those treatment. So one of the things what I've been doing here at NAU is to increase the capacity in forest operations, and with that, my focus has been on the development of the forest operations training center, which may offer the 3 training programs to increase the capacity. Number 1 is the training the forest machine operators. Number 2, heavy equipment heavy equipment maintenance and repair. And then 3rd, the career path we are looking at is the truck driver with a commercial drive license. And so those ideas we've been working on. And to do that, to develop a forest operation training center, we applied and received $350,000 grant from EDA last year. And this grant was to develop a training, those three training program I mentioned, and curriculums. And then also we're trying to establish a strong partnership with the local community colleges and county, in this case, especially with the Coconino County, to offer those training programs. And so when I was working on my application, so so those are the ideas behind when I was working on my application for the EDA program. I used kind of a few strategies and ideas I applied. And number one was I tried to read really very carefully about all the details on the notice of funding opportunity, which explains in detail about every single details of what applicant need to prepare. And then as soon as I read after completion of the reading that the notice of funding opportunity, I reached out to the EDA representative in Seattle and asked them about to make sure the idea I have in mind is really within the scope of the funding program. And also I was trying to get some additional advice and the suggestions from them, see how I can prepare a very competitive proposal. So that's that was their assistance, and the explanation was very, very helpful. So it was very clear that after talking with the EDA representative, I was convinced that I was able to say that, okay, so project idea we have in mind within the scope of what they're looking for. So from there, I tried to give carefully. I address every single items and topics that need to be included in my application. So that's what I focused. And another thing I tried in my application was to try to explain local economic conditions and the challenges, and from that point, how our project may help address those challenges and develop new economic opportunities. That I am trying to emphasize that quite a bit in my application. The funding program we targeted was the economic adjustment assistance, the program, which does not have a deadline, submission deadline, as Asia mentioned. So applicants' application can come in into their program until the funding runs out. So my idea was to submit our application to the funding program as soon as possible before the fund runs out. So that is the things. So what I was thinking quite a bit. So I think I can share some other ideas more later, but I'll stop here for now and see if anyone has questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Han. So yeah, we're at the end of the last presentation here, and I just let everybody know, remind everyone that there's the Q&A function below, so you can enter questions there, and any questions for the current panel for EDA. Because one of the, if nobody else has questions, I have one of the things that was pointed out. I was able to speak with Asia yesterday because this was literally on Friday, we found out that we had to change the panel around, but questions I had was, I didn't realize that there was, until you told me yesterday, that there was folks that were dealt with basically pre-award and then there's post-award. Is that posted on the website? So folks can look that up and find out who's involved with the part of the award?
Well, the pre-award is always going to be your economic development representative. So that's me for Arizona right now, or I can get you in contact with those representatives in New Mexico and Colorado and other states, Nevada, California. Post-award, the person you work with, it just depends on office workload. So it's always different. That's a different position called the economic development specialist or a grants officer. And so it's just going to depend. So that's not going to be up on the website. So our positions as representatives are really the people you want to be in contact with to help you work on your application, your project development, and to help you apply.
Okay. And another question that comes to mind that you did mention that, we SWRI, Southwest Ecological Restoration Institutes covers basically three states. So there's separate regions for New Mexico and for Colorado, correct?
Yeah, New Mexico and Colorado are in a different region than Arizona and Nevada. So, the programs are the same. The local offices might do some things a little bit differently, but it's the same programs, same regulations and details. But of course, if you're working across state boundaries, that doesn't mean you have to submit maybe 2 different applications. We can work across state boundaries with another region if there's a cross-state application. That's no problem.
That's good to know, because in the future there may be some cross boundaries from some state, cross boundaries between the states.
Absolutely. We want to work regionally at the EDA. We really want to see jurisdictions and organizations partnering in the region that makes sense to you economically. So we know that doesn't always stop at a political boundary.
Okay, gotcha. I don't see any other questions at this point. We have a pretty quiet group. Con, do you have any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay, great. Well, we're after 10, and I just could not. Originally, like I said, we had this workshop planned for 4 hours, and I got it down to 2 hours and 15 minutes. I just couldn't get it down to 2 hours. So we're right at 5, almost 5 after the hour. But I guess at this point, I think we still have most of the people on. So if there's any other questions for any of the other panelists or case study folks, if you could put those in the Q&A, we can address those. Otherwise, I'm not seeing any at this point. Yeah, I'm not seeing any. So I guess what I'll do is thank everybody for attending, for showing up, and also for our panelists. Really appreciate. We had some situations at the last minute where we had a lot of people stepping up to the plate and coming in and taking over other people's positions. So I really appreciate that part of it. And hopefully we can continue this possibly once we're out of COVID. Hopefully we can have something in person that we could have, continue this type of a discussion, get other groups. hopefully it's been valuable for everybody. We tried to put a good variety in as far as grant programs, but there's more. There's other grants out there, you know, forest products, industry related. So that's we've always got plenty of material in the future if we want to do an in-person meeting and get some networking going, and hopefully we can do that after this next spring. So anyway, so hope to see some of you at the Albuquerque meeting, and we're going to go ahead and close it out. I still am not seeing any questions, so appreciate everybody's excellent bladder control for a 2-hour meeting without a break. Anyway, thanks for everything, and we'll go ahead and sign out. Get you out, give you part of your day back, like 9 minutes of it anyway. But thanks again, and if there's any other questions, you know where to get a hold of us hopefully at the SWRI website. All right, thank you.